imagine walking along a peaceful beach and all of a sudden the tide gets super violent, surging towards you, and you hear this humming sound emerging from the depths of the ocean. In 1972, a man encountered this chilling scene at Compton Bay, struggling against rising waters and strange outwardly noises. He sees something terrifying beneath the waves. Two yellow lights, like eyes watching him. But this is just the beginning. A year later, his daughter stumbles upon something even stranger. Sam the Sandown Clown, a figure with a haunting smile and a strange hat. What is Sam? Some call it a hoax, some call it alien, some people call it a ghost. Now grab a drink once more, dim the lights, and get comfortable. Here's the story of Sam the Sandown Clown. In March 1972, a man walks along a peaceful beach of Compton Bay on the Isles of Wight. It's a cold day, but he enjoys the peace and quiet. He ventures out a little further in the ocean, taking advantage of the low tide. And all of a sudden, the tide suddenly hits him with more force than he expects. It feels a little unsettling, but he brushes it off and decides to head back to his car. But just before he turns, another wave crashes against him again, even harder this time. Now glancing out into sea, he feels like something's not right. He has this growing sense of unease that settles over him. He's on high alert, and he starts to run towards the beach area, back to the sand. He wants to get out of the water. But the tide grows even stronger with every second. Then, all of a sudden, he hears this deep, eerie humming sound coming from the sea. At this point, he's panicking, so he's doing all that he can to rush back to the beach area. But the waves are plummeting him, each stronger than the last. He can't pinpoint what triggered this sudden surge in the tide, but he knows if this continues, he might not make it back to shore. His eyes catch the formation of some rocks jolting just high enough out of the water to offer him some safety. Realizing this is his only chance to save his life, he swims towards the rocks, knowing his survival depends on reaching them. Alone, with no one around to help, he pushes harder and harder, sweating. He reaches the rocks, and despite his wet, slippery hands, he does manage to grab onto it, just barely. Exhausted, he just collapses on top of it, grateful to be out of the water. So he's, just trying to catch his breath while the waves crash violently below him, confirming that if he tried to go back to the beach, he would have likely died. So as he regains his breath, he stares out to the dark sea, trying to make sense of everything that's happening. He's thinking, maybe this is an underwater, earthquake or something unusual. Then he hears this humming sound again. But this time the humming sound's even louder, coming from beneath the water. He looks down into the waves and sees something very strange. Two faint yellow lights flickering just beneath the surface. They're distorted from the water, but they look unmistakably like some eyes staring at him underneath the water. Now later he goes on to describe them as eyes staring at him from a terrible sea creature. Now these lights, they linger staring at him for a few minutes before they disappear into darkness. And that humming sound eventually fades away, as if it's in sync with the eyes. At this point, the tide recedes enough so he can run back to shore. Shaken and very, disturbed, but he's still alive. He reaches his car, thankful to be safe. This isn't his first strange encounter. For the past couple of years, he's noticed odd lights that seemed to follow him around, but he kept quiet about it, afraid no one would believe him. It isn't a year later until his daughter experiences something even stranger that he decides to share his story. Now, his 7-year-old daughter, Faye, is playing near Lake Common in the seaside town of Sandown. It's a warm afternoon in the spring. She and a boy around her same age is playing hide and seek, enjoying the freedom of the day. As the afternoon stretches on, they decide it's time to head back for dinner. But before they leave, something strange catches their attention. A sound like a siren, low, walling. It's like an ambulance sound. It seems to come from somewhere nearby, though it's hard to tell exactly where. Curiously, they pause and listen closer. And as kids being kids, they say, hey, maybe we have enough time to investigate what this sound is. And it sounds pretty close, like it's coming from a field or two away. Now their playground backs onto a golf course, so they head to the edge of it, following the sound. Oddly, None of the adults playing on the course seem to react to the noise, which strikes Faye as strange. Still, they cross through this hedge near the Sandown Airport, which is a small airport rarely used at the time. The siren gets louder, but no obvious source in sight. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the sound stops, and an eerie silence falls upon them. Confused, the children wander deeper into the woods, hoping to find something that explains what they just heard. They eventually reach this small wooden wood bridge, but right as they step onto it, Faye freezes. She sees something beneath the bridge. It's a hand gripping the underside of the wooden plank. This hand is wearing a blue glove. It only has 3 fingers, oddly enough. Before the kids can react, this tall, oddly looking clown figure emerges under the bridge. Its back's turned to them, but it's clear this person or thing is unusually tall. Now its clothes is unlike anything the kids have ever seen. This figure seems pretty clumsy, and it drops a book into the water, and it fumbles around to retrieve it, moving very awkwardly, as it's kind of struggling to control its own limbs, or just extremely bad coordination. After several attempts, it finally grabs the book and starts walking away in a strange hopping motion, headed towards this metallic house-like structure with no windows. The kids are just standing there frozen, watching as this figure enters this house and disappears. Now they're scared to death at this point, so they decide to go find some adults. They remember seeing 2 men fixing a fence nearby, so they head back in that direction. As they turn around, they see this figure again, standing much closer now, staring at them. So they're a little freaked out at this point and they're nervous. At this time, this figure is holding this microphone that he talks into. No one moves, and then this siren blares again, so loud it hurts their ears. The boy panics and runs. He takes off. The siren stops just as quickly as it started, and the figure raises the microphone to its mouth. Despite the distance, the children hear his voice, and it seems like he's really close to them.
Hello.
He says in the microphone,
Hello, are you still there?
It's a strange question considering the figure has been there watching them all that time. Yet there's something oddly calming about his voice. And instead of running, Faye very bravely feels a strong pull towards the figure, and she starts walking closer. The boy hesitates but eventually follows. Close up, they finally get a good look at it. Faye later describes this figure in detail. It's nearly 7 foot tall, has no visible neck, as though the head sits directly on its shoulders. It wears a yellow pointed hat connected to a red collar with a green tunic. Now on top of this hat is a black knob, kind of like a wooden knob that's kind of looks like an antenna. Its face has these triangled eyes, brown square nose, and unmoving yellow lips. Its cheeks are white, and a bit of its red hair pokes out of his hat, and wears these blue gloves, while his feet are white with 3 toes. His hands also have only 3 fingers. This figure pulls out a notebook and writes something down, handing it to the children as it gestures to Faye to read it aloud. So she begins to read. It says,
Hello, I am all color Sam.
The words are kind of scattered randomly across the page. Oddly, the 2 men nearby who were fixing the fence show no reaction to the strange scene, as if they can't see Sam, or the children for that matter, while Faye grows more comfortable around Sam, feeling reassured by his gentle demeanor. Sam asks the children about themselves and answers a few questions in return. When asked if he's a man, Sam chuckles and says no. When asked if he's a ghost, he responds cryptically, Well, not really, but I am in an odd sort of way, he responds. Sam explains that he isn't really human and has no real name, though he goes by Sam. He reveals that there's others like him and even draws a picture of one of his companions. Despite his strange appearance, Sam insists that he's harmless, explaining that he fears humans because they might hurt him, and if anyone attacked him, he wouldn't fight back. He keeps to himself to avoid trouble. Now Sam invites the kids into his metallic house, which has 2 floors. Inside, the lower floor is tall enough for Sam to stand, and it's filled with wooden furniture, blue and green wallpaper, and various dials, almost like a space shuttle or something. Eventually, Sam removes his hat, revealing white ears and thinning brown hair. He shows the kids his way of eating berries, where he pushes them into his ear, and then they appear in his mouth. The kids are pretty amused, but after spending half an hour with Sam, they say their goodbyes, and they just walk away. They feel this wave of fear as they're walking away, and then they start running back to their house. When they tell their parents about this strange encounter, the adults seem unable to understand what the kids experienced, almost if they didn't comprehend what they were saying. So what is Sam? A ghost, an alien, or is this just something entirely different? Sam's story remains a popular part of the Isles of Wight folklore, with no clear answers of his identity. The strange mix of childlike innocence and uncanny details makes Sam the Sandown Clown one of the most mysterious and eerie figures in history. Who knows, perhaps Sam is still out there, hiding in plain sight, just waiting for another curious soul to stumble upon him. Now, if you like stories like this, then I'm pretty confident you're going to love this story, which is about this haunted house, which has a real life horror story that happened and also has this paranormal activity that happens. And thank you for watching. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. With all of my love,